So we have done a lot of talk about the PlayStation 5, mostly because Sony has talked about it a lot more seemingly than Microsoft has about the Xbox Scarlett, and we get pictures for some reason of these development kits. Again, I don't know who is allowing people to walk through these studios and these offices and just snap pictures, but they're doing it. So yeah, we've been talking about the PS5 much more than the Xbox Scarlett. However, there has been a rumor that keeps popping up and then going away, and then popping up and then going away, and now it's back again. And this time it seems like it's a bit more, I'll say tangible. It seems like there is more backing to this now than ever, and that involves more than one system releasing from Microsoft at the launch of the Xbox Scarlett and the next PlayStation, the PlayStation 5. Now, Scarlett is technically a code name, I guess, that they've given it. Kind of like Xbox One X was the Scorpio, and then they named it the Xbox One X during its big grand unveiling with the price and all of that. So I do think maybe at E3 they will tell us what it's actually called, along with a release date and a price. All of that will probably be unveiled there. But another system could be also unveiled, which would be named as well and put a release date probably the same day with a price. And it is that one that we talked about previously, the Xbox Lockhart, or I guess just Lockhart, although we have Xbox Scarlett and Xbox Lockhart is how I'm going to go with it. This is the one that we talked about previously that they were going to apparently put out as a cheaper model, which is something that has had people talking right now, because it also won't be as powerful, okay, as something like the Anaconda, or underneath of the Xbox Scarlett. So we have Anaconda and then we have Lockhart. Those seem to be the big names, whereas Scarlett is like the code name for the whole thing, like the big umbrella. Anaconda is the very powerful one. Lockhart apparently is the less powerful, cheaper one that, according to sources out of Kotaku, will also be diskless. It won't take any of the physical games that you would then buy. So let's jump over here to the Kotaku article. It's down below, okay? Jason Schreier did a very good job with this piece. Went to apparently 4 different sources to verify all of this information. So it seems pretty well sourced at this point. So what we're seeing here, I think at least internally now, seems to be the plan. And again, plans do change, but I also put it in rumor wave just to be sure, because you never know with how some of these things turn out. They could decide that, oh, we're gonna pull this, we're not gonna do it right away, we're gonna show off this version, the Anaconda, up against the PS5, not to confuse people. But let's go through here. Sources: Microsoft is still planning a cheaper diskless next-gen Xbox. Now, if we remember before, Microsoft had talked about how Xbox Scarlett was going to, as they have quoted here, set a new bar for console power, speed, and performance. And yeah, it will. So will the PlayStation 5, because it seems like they're going to be similarly spec'd out, which makes sense because they're both coming out of AMD. AMD's working with both of them right now, and well, after seeing how similar really with the chips that the PS4 and the next Xbox One were, there were some other differences in there. Specifically, the memory had a big impact on how those games performed, and Sony caught them off guard a bit. If you remember, one of the pieces of speculation now is that Microsoft could be working to surprise Sony. And I think the way that they could surprise them is with another system releasing alongside of it, that being Lockhart. Now, previously, we had Thurrott.com, Brad Sams, to actually talk about all of these SKUs. Like, this was, I think, was this last year? It's been a while. They've been talking about this for quite a bit now, that there would be other systems releasing, at least one. He also had talked about the SAD, the S All Digital version that came out. I think it was priced too high, but then it dropped in price and actually had the best Black Friday in the UK, just based on price, it seems, and the package. So yeah, cheaper systems tend to sell units. Shocker, right? Price is very important when it comes to systems releasing. But if you remember at E3, Phil Spencer said, right now, no, it's just a one system setup with Scarlett. Well, according to Kotaku now, that's not necessarily the case anymore. According to 4 sources that have been briefed by Microsoft on what their plan is going into release next year. Keep in mind, we're less than a year, we believe, from these systems coming out, probably sometime in November. I think it'll be the first half of November. So yeah, we're coming up on being about 11 months out, and that already time moves quick. We're already just about done 2019. Now, Kotaku managed to speak to someone here. As you see, they say one game developer briefed on Lockhart said it's similar to the PlayStation 4 Pro. Use that kind of as an analogy, saying, oh, it's similar to the PS4 in terms of Pro in terms of raw graphical power, but there will be some differences, which we assume immediately it would use a solid state drive, considering developers would be creating games with that in mind. You really can't have two different systems in the same technical generation, but one have a mechanical hard drive and the other one have a solid state drive. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, and that would, I think, put a big strain on those developers trying to make all this work. They probably want to keep it as straightforward as possible. That's why I think it will have pretty much the same CPU as well, and really it'll just be on the GPU side. It's going to be a system on a chip, right? It's all in one chip, all of that, but the CPU side will probably be the same or extremely similar. If you look at the Xbox One X, it's still using those Jaguar cores. They didn't upgrade that at all, and that I think is to make things a bit easier on the developers overall. But then of course they just strap a massive GPU to it and to say, go, do 4K, and in some games it does. Red Dead Redemption 2 is all 4K, which is very impressive. But then we see games held back by the Xbox One S. There are times where the Xbox One S, oh, if you get certain games now, it is a struggle. Anthem is like almost unplayable on that system. Jedi Fallen Order, same deal. So that is a problem, and something that people might be a bit concerned about going into next gen if there really is a less powerful, as they're saying, PS4 Pro style, so like 4 teraflop system out there. But here's the deal. Microsoft has a plan for resolution and frame rate, again, according to developers that have been briefed by Microsoft, reported by Kotaku here, saying that the target performances and resolutions would be 4K 60 for Anaconda, the more powerful one. Let's say that one's like, I don't know, 12 or 13 teraflops. And then the little 4 teraflop one would be about 1440p at 60 frames per second. And of course, that would probably use checkerboarding to make it a nice 4K picture on your screen. I think for the most part, checkerboarding has done a pretty good job on things like the PlayStation 4 Pro and in some cases the Xbox One X, so they would probably use it very consistently with that less powerful system for Lockhart. Now we know Microsoft, of course, is going heavy in terms of services. Game Pass is a massive focus for them, and it seems like that's what they would advertise alongside of it. I wouldn't be surprised if they threw like a free month of Xbox Live and Game Pass into the package with Lockhart. That wouldn't shock me at all. And really, if the size of the solid state drive is enough, that would actually be pretty good value. But that is where we get into the kind of the heavy speculation part of this video. How much would these things cost? And of course, what kind of sizes would be in there? I do think both systems will have the same size of storage. So solid state drives in both, of course. And I think they'll probably both be 1 terabyte. And then of course, they'll be different in terms of power overall, but then price should also be very different, considering one is not only less powerful, even less powerful in the Xbox One X. Technically, that doesn't necessarily mean less capable though, which is very important considering it would be on AMD's latest architecture overall, right? It'd be using Navi, we assume, and it'll of course have a solid state drive. I think it'll be similarly capable to the Xbox One X, and in some cases much more so, especially when it comes to what all these developers plan to do with these solid state drives, which might not necessarily, I would say, turn into faster load times. They might have some ideas for these SSDs that we have never seen possible before. That's the exciting part, by the way. But let's say we get to release day. Let's say it's like November. I don't even know what a Friday is in November. Let's just say it's like November 10th or something, just off the top of my head. That's probably like a Tuesday or Monday or something. It doesn't make sense. But let's say they get to that point. And here comes Microsoft with 2 systems, one at 400 and one at 500. Let's say the Lockhart is 400 and the Anaconda is 500. And then Sony shows up with the PS5 at 500. They wouldn't have the cheapest system then. That would be Microsoft. So I do wonder if that is Microsoft's secret weapon, if that's why they've been fairly secretive and kind of just like, don't worry about that. It's a one system thing from Phil Spencer. Is this what they're trying to catch Sony off guard with? Sony showing up with a $500 system, assuming that Microsoft's going to show up to E3 with their own $500 system. Oh, but wait, you can play the same games from here, right, digitally, on Lockhart, a system that is $100 cheaper, and you'll be able to buy it the same day. Price does have a large effect on what you can and can't buy, right? When you go and get a system, because maybe you want an extra controller with your system and you don't necessarily care about 4K 60 when you think 1440p checkerboard 60 is good enough for you. And you know what? I was actually surprised how many stores sold that Xbox One S all digital. I see it at Walmart's, Best Buy's, Target's. I don't really see it at GameStop, but I see it at all these other places. And if all these places are going to sell an all digital one already, and it's sold fairly well in the UK, maybe Microsoft got a pretty good feeling about that, and maybe plans shifted back internally, and that's why we stopped hearing about Lockhart, and then we started hearing about it again because sales were actually decent when it got to a certain price. What if Microsoft shocked the world and showed up on the E3 and they had a $500 Anaconda, but then they had a $300 Lockhart? That would be mind-blowing, I think, to a lot of people. Now, of course, they would have to cut some serious things out, and maybe the storage size is even smaller than a terabyte, and there's like, look, this is what we're going with. It's the cheap box, right? But hey, maybe they make it all work out and they take a loss on it because they realize it's worth doing that for the install size that would surely build around a system that cheap at launch. At that point, it'd be the same price as the Switch, right? And it'd be a next-gen platform. That'd be very interesting to see how that would work out. Now, let me talk to you very quickly about what some of the drawbacks are here, and everyone's really thinking this right now. If Microsoft shows up with a lesser system in terms of technical specs, as some developers have even said being concerned, does that mean that we have to design for something like this, right? A much less powerful system in terms of GPU power. Now, of course, I'm sure their engines and all that stuff will scale. It'll just be resolution, and maybe they'll have to, okay, we'll have to play around with some settings here and there to get the frame rate right. But that's a whole nother SKU they have to worry about, another setup that they have to worry about that could end up taking away from Anaconda and kind of holding it back some. Whereas if it's just Anaconda and they're like, look, here's the box, boom, design for it, and that's it, right? Put everything into that. They would be split then. And would that cause an issue? Because that does seem to be a concern. But then on the other side, if Microsoft, say, comes out with a $400 system here with the Xbox Lockhart, they really would have the bottom of the market locked up. Does that mean that instead of trying to cut corners for Anaconda, could they actually make it very powerful? Could they say, well, we have a $400 box, let's go make a $600 box for the enthusiast? Could they do that? Because I think some people would like that. Not everyone. Trust me, the general public does not like high-priced systems. That's just the way it is. They don't. These systems sell much better when price drops happen and sales take place. That's just the way it is. But there would be some early adopters who would be fully on board with that. The reason I know that is because there were people who still bought the PlayStation 3 back in 2006 for $600. So surely some people in 2020 would do the same thing here, especially if it is that much more powerful. Like if it is just an outright beast of a system, and it's helped by having a $400 box next to it for the lower end market, that would be something to see and another way to look at it. But I gotta be honest, it is something right now to consider this. It's weird to think that a lesser powerful system, one that could clock in around the PlayStation 4 Pro at 4 teraflops or something, could actually be Microsoft's secret weapon going into next generation. It could also be one of the biggest drawbacks if it splits up the developer's time and they have to account for 2 different systems. It's a double-edged sword, but let me know what you guys think about this situation down below. Seriously, I think this could be big for Microsoft if they can pull it off correctly, and it'll be interesting to see how it would all shake out, especially if Sony did not prepare for it. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Again, very curious. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys next time.